Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, to those who are joining us. I see participants from different parts of the world today. So, yeah, nice to have you here. And of course, warm welcome to those who have just, there are some very familiar faces as well. Thanks for joining us for this session again. So today's session is on harassments, steps in handling harassments. So without further ado, I'll just hand it over to Maurice, our very experienced HR consultant. Over to you, Maurice.
Okay, thank you, Diti. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. All right, just a little bit about myself. I have been in HR for more than 38 years, with 22 years as head of HR function, covering the Asia Pac region. I have been doing HR training for many years with some of the HR institutions in Singapore. So, what I'll do is I'll touch on today's topics on harassment and also describe the different types of harassment, how you identify harassment, and the reporting investigation steps. But first, a little bit about ourselves. So bear with me for the first few minutes. As usual, I will talk about our company, New Vista, which is a Oracle NetSuite solution provider since 2012. And New Vista has a HRMS called New Smart, which was established in 2015, also riding on NetSuite platform. Today, we have implemented more than 10 companies with more than 3,000 users across 10 countries. Our HRMS is very comprehensive. It has all the different HR modules covering HR areas such as recruitment and onboarding, payroll, attendance, leave, training, performance, expense, and even assets management. It's one of the most comprehensive HRMS. Besides providing HR management system, we also do provide HR consulting as well as payroll outsourcing. So if you are in need of any of these services, please do contact us. We'll be more than happy to talk to you. All right, let's get started with today's session. First, let me introduce what is harassment. Okay, these are some of the frequently asked questions about harassment. What is harassment? Is there any Singapore law or statute covering harassment? Who is responsible for investigating harassment? Can a boss or manager raise his or her voice and shout at employees for making mistake or not following instruction? Is this considered as harassment? These are typical common questions that many employees or people will ask about harassment. All right, so I'm going to cover all this, etc. All right. So what is harassment? Workplace harassment is basically unwelcome verbal, written, visual, or physical conduct that create an intimidating, offensive, or hostile working environment. So the conduct can be verbal, can be written, can be visual, or physical. Anything that is considered as offensive, intimidating, or hostile is termed as harassment. Okay, and this harassment may interfere with an employee's work performance. And harassment can be persistent, that means regular, or it can be an isolated case. So it doesn't mean one time. We do not term that as harassment. Even if it's just one time, it can be a harassment. All right. And harassment can take in many forms. As I mentioned, it is verbal, visual, physical, etc. So it can come in as like insult, okay, where managers or employees are insulting another person, or jokes, okay, creating obscene jokes, okay, or making statements that are forced or certain gesture, rude gesture, or pornographic picture or images, bodily contact, stalking, bullying, and sexual. Well, why I highlight in both sexual, because this is getting very common, all right, in many parts of the world, not only in Western world, but also in Asia. It is getting more and more common here. So these are various forms of harassment. And in Singapore, harassment falls under the Protection from Harassment Act, POHA, P-O-H-A, which was enacted in 2014, and is relating to harassment or antisocial behavior, whether committed in the physical world or online. All right, so harassments, there is an act or a law in Singapore that covers this offense. So it is not something that is to be taken lightly. Harassments can occur within the office or workplace, as well as outside the office or workplace. For example, on a business trip, company function and activities, very common. It do happens when companies have their annual gathering, annual dinner, where sometimes employees get drunk and start to behave rousily and misconduct themselves. And some may end up smiling or insulting others, or even have bodily contact. Harassment can also happen in a client office, okay? Not necessarily in your own company, but maybe at a customer place, work site, and can happen anywhere. All right. And harassment can be between employees, managers and employees, and also third party, could be your customer and the employee, supplier and the employee, or a contractor. Okay, so it can happen to anybody. Right. So what are the different types of harassment? So as I mentioned in the first slide, harassment can be verbal. So verbal here, words means words, which can be demeaning in remarks, offensive gesture, unreasonable criticism, insults, smirk, unwanted jokes, and harmful comments. All right, so this, if it is prolonged, very frequent from an employee, it can become a harassment. But sometimes it's just an occasion, okay, where someone starts yelling or cursing or making inappropriate demands about a colleague. Then it may not be seen as a harassment. If it's a one-time case, it may be seen as a conflict between employees, okay, where they have differences in opinion, and they start to quarrel, to argue, and that cannot be termed as harassment, okay, because it's a one-time off. So it has to be very careful how it's being perceived on verbal harassment. Physiological harassment, psychological harassment means here it is verbal, except that it has some intent on the mental, okay, of the victim, mental breakdown. So it gives the victim a lot of stress, okay, morale, okay, loss of self-esteem. So this is something that okay, worse off than verbal harassment. Okay, so sometimes making impossible demand where managers ask employees to do something that is very difficult, okay, maybe against their value, against their religion, okay, which can give them a lot of mental stress, okay, or taking credit of someone's achievement, imposing unreasonable deadline, okay, to perform demeaning tasks outside their job scope, okay, and or persistently opposing to someone's suggestion or ideas. So this can be psychologically, okay, against the employee. This is very hard to prove, okay, and it usually takes a long time to see the effect. All right. If it's 1-2 times, the effect may not be there, so it cannot be classified as harassment. But if it's continued and you can see the victim being very stressful, okay, in danger of committing suicide or hurting themselves, then it's really a form of harassment. Okay. The next one is digital harassment. This is now getting very common with a lot of social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. So this is basically cyberbullying, okay, where people start to post, okay, comments, thread on the social media, creating fake news about someone, having sensitive photograph or obscene photograph of certain employees, okay, in very embarrassing position or posture, okay. So this can now become a harassment. Right? Very frequently happen. Sometimes it's not verbal, but people start to use social media to belittle an employee or someone. Okay. So be very careful. It is termed as harassment, and you can be charged. The next harassment is physical harassment. This one did not have describes. Okay, it basically means touching another person. Okay, it could be a punch, a slap, kick. Okay, violence action, okay, against another person. So where there's bodily contacts. So physical harassment can vary in degree. All right. So it doesn't mean to hurt. Sometimes it's just bodily contact. Okay, hugging and so forth is already physical harassment. Right. Sexual harassment, I mentioned this is something that is getting common in many parts of the world. It is having unwanted sexual advances, touching, jokes, okay, sending sexual messages, requiring sexual favor in exchange for promotion or salary increase, and so forth. So be very careful. Sometimes sexual harassment is not very straightforward, and many a times they are not reported. Okay, because it's for the victim itself, it's very difficult for them because of the embarrassment that they may face later on if it's known. And some people just suffer in silence. Right? But this is very serious. And company needs to deal with such situation. Okay? Must know how to deal with such situation. Okay, identification of harassment, that you know the different types of harassment, you know the different forms, how it can take place. Okay. The next thing is, how do you identify? All right. So let's look at the first case. A very senior and long service manager in the company always asked one of their staff to buy coffee or breakfast 2 or 3 times each week before coming into the office without reimbursing the staff. Is this bullying or physiologically harassment? psychologically harassment? What do you all think? Is this harassment at the first place? Maybe you all like to put your answer in the chat. Let me see how many say yes, how many say no. What do you all think? Okay, when your manager asks, hey, can you buy coffee for me on the way to work? Okay, and then never pay up. All right, can you buy breakfast for me? And then never reimburse the employee. Okay, is this considered bullying? Anybody? Type your answer in the chat, okay, so that I can see. Feel free, type your answer. Yes, is it harassment, or no, it's not harassment? What do you all think? Nobody have an answer to this? Yes, it's considered as bullying. Bullying, yes, good. Who else? Anybody say no? Can't type because, maybe Uditi, can you disable so that they can type on the chat? Okay, or Q&A. Okay. So maybe type in the Q&A, question and answer. So type your answer in the Q&A. So
I think should be able to type.
Okay, no problem.
There's nothing disabled.
Okay, so anyway, feel free to type either in the chat or the Q&A what you think. So two of you say it's definitely bullying. Okay. Well, all right. If this continue weeks after weeks, it is definitely harassment, bullying. Okay, it's definitely harassment. Okay. Because the managers is taking advantage of the staff. All right. So this is definitely considered harassment, even though the manager thinks that, it is a favor, since it's along the way. If the manager has reimbursed the employee, then maybe it's very difficult to term as harassment. But since the key point here is without reimbursing the staff for the purchase, that is definitely a harassment. All right. But again, we have to investigate further. We just cannot take it as harassment from the face value of what we read. But just assume that harassment based on the facts stated here. Now, what about this one? This is very common in many SME. I have worked with consulted one or two companies, and this is an actual case. Okay? An owner of a small company, SME, who's the CEO, is very temperamental and like his employees to follow his instruction and tends to micromanage all his staff. Okay? So each day he will call his staff to his room and ask them about their work. And if their work is not up to mark or they did not follow his instruction, they will be yelled at. They get scolding from the CEO. And sometimes if they try to defend themselves, they get scolded with abusive language. So the abusive language could be very vulgar at some time. However, on the other hand, when he's in a good mood, he will take care of his staff, providing free lunch from high-end restaurant regularly. His office, his pantry is packed with quality snacks and drinks. All his coffee is all high-end espresso. Okay. He gives his staff surprise gift, okay, on their birthday, on certain occasion, good bonuses, and even bring them for holidays. Do we consider the behavior of the CEO as workplace harassment? What do you think? So some of them says, yes, it's workplace harassment because it's verbal harassment, because the boss shouted at the employee. Is that right? But he's also at the same time very nice, okay, to the staff, give them good benefits. Yes, okay, most of you said yes, still harassment. All right. So everybody looks only on the bad side, the negative side of the CEO. When the boss bring the employees for holidays, give them good bonuses, nobody says good about the boss. But when the boss shouted at the employee, it's harassment. The boss is guilty, right? Anybody else? All right. Well, at the first place, yes, okay, his behavior, shouting at employees, scolding employees, or yelling at employees is considered as harassment. All right. Many of his staff knows about his temperamental, okay, his swing of moods. Many of their employees have give and take, okay, forgive him, never complain. They know him because he do not hide his feeling. All right, he may scold the employee, but next day they are good friends. Okay, he will buy food for them, and things get ongoing. So, but the scolding, the yelling is harassment. If they want to report, they can. But many of his employees did not because they always forgive him. But that doesn't mean the end. Okay, the staff needs to look into it, see how they can help the CEO to correct his behavior. So, okay, when I went in to do the consulting services, my advice to the CEO is anger management. All right, he was a good boss, but I advise him to go for anger management, right? And shout less, yell less, okay, so that he will not be caught one day where employees will complain about him on harassment. So he took my view and he went for anger management. He went for meditation. All right, and it works. He's now less temperamental. He has stopped scolding his employee. Still do once in a while. Whenever he starts scolding, his secretary will barge in and remind the boss to stop before he get himself into trouble with the law. And we play a game. Okay, so I told the boss, if he caught shouting, he will be fined $10 each time. So the money will go to a pool and will end up used for employees' recreation fund. Okay, so it works. It helps the boss. It takes time to correct his behavior, but it's working. So everybody is now back happier. All right. So, but story short, this is considered harassment. Next one. A female employee was known to be dating her married manager, okay, a few times or seen, and now she raised the issue of sexual harassment to HR, claiming that her manager threatened her with her career if she does not go on a date with him. So is this sexual harassment? Anyone? This is a true case as well. Huh? Let me tell you, this is a true case as well. Okay, which I have handled. Okay. Female employee needs to provide proof of sexual harassment. How to prove that the manager threatened her? Maybe unless she record the threat that the manager has given her. So unless she can record that, and that can be a proof. All right. If not, it's going to be quite difficult. Words against words. Yes, that is. Okay, there's no longer. Some say, oh, because of WhatsApp. I see. Okay. All right. But unfortunately, this case happened many years ago when WhatsApp, it wasn't very popular at that time. It is still SMS. Okay. I remember because that was many years, more than 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, when we have this sexual harassment case. Okay. One of my earliest harassment case that I ever had. So, okay. After investigation, it turned out it's not a sexual harassment. Okay, it's not sexual harassment. So the married manager has marital issue with the spouse, okay, with the wife. They are not in a happy marriage. The female employees know about it. So sometimes the married managers get sad, moody. So the female employees will try to comfort the managers, and slowly that develop into a dating session. And when the wife threatened the managers for divorce, okay, to divorce him, the managers refused and promised to man back with the wife, and went to the ladies, to the female employee, and said, end the relationship. The female employee felt cheated and decided to raise the issue of sexual harassment. So at that time, there was no such thing as a WhatsApp message, SMS, and so forth. Everything is verbal, white and black. You tell me, okay, female said he threatened me. Manager said no, it's voluntary with consent, and now we want to break up. She refused. She threatened to complain about me, put down as sexual harassment. So at that time, it was quite difficult to know who to believe, the manager or the. So what should I do? Anybody knows? Make a guess. How do I determine who is telling the truth now? Since there's no recorded evidence, it's word against word. How do I prove who is right, who is wrong? Anybody has any idea? Company, we have code of conduct, but we never says that there should be no boy-girl relationship. Boy-girl relationship is allowed. Okay. Being a equal, fair employer, we do not disallow boy-girl relationship. All right. As long as there is no reporting relationship, means the manager don't date the subordinate. There is no spouse, your wife should not be reporting to you, okay, as an immediate manager. It has to be separated. If someone from one department date another person in another department, it's fine, but not in the same department. If it's in the same department, one will have to get transferred or move out of the company. Okay. But we do not discourage boy-girl relationship. It's okay. We have no right to stop. Okay. It's a free will, freedom. Well, I said why she did the manager at the first place. Well, maybe out of sympathy, manager has problem with the wife, so to comfort him, okay, every time he come into the office very sad, so out of sympathy, decide to maybe have a drink with him and slowly develop movie and then one thing to another. Well, let's cut the story straight since nobody got the answer. Basically, what I did was I tell the lady, please file a police report on sexual harassment. Okay. At that time, there is no POHA, but to me, this is a serious case that warrant a police charged. All right. So I asked the lady to file a police case and thereafter take legal action against the manager, sue the manager for sexual harassment. All right. So if she is confident that this is actual harassment, then she should do that. File a police report, take that police report to a lawyer and sue the manager for sexual harassment and for compensation. And if you do that, if you win, then we will take action against the manager. All right, because as HR, I don't have the authority to do that. Okay, I'm not a police and I'm not a judge. Okay, so the only way is now we have to go out to a third party, to the police and to the court. So she said no, she doesn't want to go to that extent. I insist. I said no, we have to, and we will accompany her to make the report and so forth. All right. After a few rounds of discussion, she finally break down and said, actually, there wasn't any sexual harassment. Okay, because she was angry, she felt cheated. That's why she complained and says that her manager threatened her career with and put it as sexual harassment. So in this case, the manager won. Okay, for her, we just give her a warning. We did not dismiss her. We just give her a warning. Okay, and tell her that in future, if she were to threaten again, she will be dismissed. All right, but unfortunately, she resigned thereafter. Okay. So that's how difficult it is. Now you can see it is not easy to identify harassment. Okay, it is very difficult. So as an encouragement, if you're a HR practitioner, you should put in place a harassment policy in your company. If you do not have one, it is about time for you to establish, so that when harassment happens, okay, employees know what to do, managers know what to do, management know what to do, and there is proper guideline. All right. So your harassment policy should include, okay, a clear statement of zero tolerance of any type of harassment. Okay? And management must be committed, okay, to prevent and respond to any type of harassment. They cannot brush off. If people say, hey, there's a harassment, never mind, small case, don't worry. It's just a one time. That's annoyed. There's no such thing. All right. Harassment has to be taken very seriously once reported. Okay. And in your policy, you must have the different definition of harassment, like I mentioned: verbal, physical, sexual, digital harassment or cyberbullying, and so forth. So there must be all the different definition of different type of harassment. And in your policy, you must also have the avenue of reporting, okay, how victim can raise and report about the harassment, okay, or the observer of a harassment offense. Okay, if someone sees somebody bullying another person, okay, how can they report the harassment? Okay, what support should be given to the victim and so forth, and how the investigation process should be, and as well as the disciplinary action. Okay. So let's go through the steps, okay, of reporting harassment. First thing is the victim, okay, of the observer. Sometimes you may not be the victim, but you may be an observer. You have seen someone bullying another person. Well, the first thing you have to do is tell the harasser, the one who is responsible for harassing, to stop. Okay, by telling them that such behavior or conduct is not acceptable, okay, and it's done as harassment. And if he or she were to continue with such behavior, okay, a report will be launched, okay, and she may be ending up having disciplinary action taken against the person. Okay, so first thing is to tell the harasser, stop doing. Okay, your behavior is not accepted. Okay, it's done as harassment, even it's only one time. Okay, stop it. Okay, so first thing is tell the harasser, stop. Now, and at the same time, the victim or the observer must take note, okay, of what is happening. Okay, so you have to record details of, okay, the date, the time of the harassment, the location, and is there any witnesses, and the nature of the harassment. What happened? Did somebody punch somebody, or did somebody commented, insulted, or what did the person do? Okay, so all this need to be recorded, and if there's an investigation, this record, okay, will form part of the evidence. All right. So this is very important, record keeping. So if it's the first time you tell the harasser stop, you record everything, and a few days later, the person continued to do it again. You record the second time, and this time you don't have to go to the harasser. You report straight away to the manager. Okay, to a manager. Okay, say somebody, an employee is bullying another employee or harassing another employee. and action should be taken. All right. But if the harasser is the manager, the department manager, then common sense will tell you to report to another manager or the HR department. All right. So that's the case. Huh? So first time you tell the harasser, hands off. If it happen again, you report. You report to the manager or the HR department. Okay. So that is the second step. And when you report, you have to show all your records, what happened and so forth. Okay. Without that, the manager and the HR department has no evidence. We cannot do anything. It's words against words. Okay. So it's the observer say, hey, I saw this manager bullying. I say, when it happened, I don't know, some time ago, few weeks ago. Where it happened? Well, in the office. What was the harassment? Okay. So all this needs to be recorded. Okay. So like I mentioned, at no time should a complaint or report about harassment be treated lightly or be ignored. Okay. All reports must be taken very seriously and documented. All right, the next step, okay, is for the company, okay, the manager to start investigating. Okay, so you need to form a committee. Okay, so preferably the manager, the HR manager, a department manager, a HR manager, okay, and somebody else can be another manager or a very senior employees or a union committee if you are unionized. Okay, to form a committee, a panel to investigate, where you call the victim or you call the observer, you call witnesses, you call the harasser and start interviewing to find out what actually happened and so forth. All right. And if nothing happened, if the management take it lightly and brush off the reports, okay, do not take action, then the employee can report or seek assistance from the Tripartite Alliances for Dispute Management, TADM. All right. So remember, if employer don't pay you, short pay you, where do you complain? TADM, which is part of MOM. Okay, and you can go there. Okay, for other countries, you may have to go to your Ministry of Labor. Okay, and so forth. All right, if you are unionized, you can go to the union, seek help. All right. If you find that the management has not done a good job or brush away your report. Okay, so that can happen. Of course, if decide that if your harasser is the boss itself, okay, the owner, like I mentioned in the second case, where they verbally abuse the employees and so forth, can you report to the HR? Can report to your immediate manager? What can they do? They have no authority. They can only tell the boss, hey, you have to stop. Okay. But if the boss doesn't stop, then what can you do? You will have to go to the TADM, right? If it's the number one of the company. Okay. Because HR and the other manager may have little power, okay, to stop the number one from abusing, from harassing the employee. So then it has to go to a third party for action. Okay. So please remember in the harassment reporting, okay, the victim should not keep quiet. Okay, should share as much as possible what happened. The second thing is for the victim or for the observer not to complain to a co-worker. Okay. If a victim is being harassed, don't go and tell your colleague, hey, I'm being harassed, what should I do? all right? Because like I say, the co-worker has no power to go and stop the harasser, all right? So it has to be someone higher up, all right? So do not complain. And sometimes you want to keep it confidential. You do not want to share all this with other people. Okay, it's not too good. Okay, so please bear in mind. And for observer, you don't go and tell the whole world, hey, so and so got bullied. Okay, so and so was taken advantage. Okay, this off by the male manager and so forth. So that's not nice. In that case, you're also becoming a harasser, spreading news, okay, and causing mental harassment to the victim. Okay, you can be one of them. So be careful not to talk about the case to other employees. Okay, harassment should be kept in strict confidentiality and should be only made known to certain people. Okay, the investigating party. Okay, the manager, the investigating party. That's all. We should not let everybody knows. Okay, and do not retaliate. Okay, take revenge. No. Okay, don't do that. Okay, make the report. Okay, so bear this in mind when you are taking steps. Okay, reporting the harassment. So remember the steps again. Okay, first thing, tell the person off. Second thing, report to the manager, HR department. If after investigation, if not satisfied, then bring it up to a third party, external party called tripartite alliances of dispute management. Okay, and then finally, okay, do not keep quiet, do not complain, do not share. All this is very confidential. So once the report has been received by the manager, okay, first thing is there are certain principles that you have to adopt. Be prompt in your investigation. When the report comes to the manager should not sit on it and wait for a few months. Okay, it must be prompt. The manager must immediately take action. Okay, and it must be unbiased. Okay, so if the manager is a good friend of the harasser or is is reporting to the harasser, then it is quite difficult. It has to go above the harasser. Okay, like I mentioned, the case, the reports must all be kept in strict confidentiality. Okay, there's no retaliation, not take revenge, and so forth. Okay. So to investigate the harassment, it's good to set up an investigating committee. Okay, select the investigator, preferably neutral and fair. Why I say a committee and not just the manager or the HR manager? No, because sometimes one person may not be unbiased. Okay? It could be biased. So it's good to have a committee so that there will be unbiasedness, there will be fairness. All right. So it could be definitely the HR, okay, a manager from another department, and maybe if it's unionized, then you have a union committee, usually the chairman or vice chairman. If it's not a union committee, then you can invite another manager, not an employee, as you do not want this to go out of too many people. All right, and then the next step is to prepare the investigation. Okay, so here doesn't mean once you receive report, form committee, start investigating. No, you need to look at the issue, come to the one who make the report. It could be an observer, it may not be the victim. So take down the notes, what happened and so forth, look at the report, outline the issue. What kind of harassment? What kind of harassment is it? Is it a verbal harassment? Is it a physical harassment? Is it a sexual harassment? What was the what was the form of harassment? Was there any contact and so forth? Was there any records? Was there any evidence, etc.? Okay. Check for witnesses. Talk to the one who make the report. Are there any witnesses? Who are the witnesses and so forth? And start collecting the evidence and start preparing the interview questions. So when you interview the victim, when you interview the harassment, you must know what question to ask. Okay. So because you'll be taking the minutes of meeting, okay, so it will be Q&A, question and answer, question and answer, question, answer. Okay, so your question, some may be open-ended, some may be closed-ended. Okay, so, and the question must drill down to collect the facts, okay, determine the events and determine the facts. So this is very important, preparing for the investigation. You even haven't started interviewing yet, it's just preparing, okay. And then step 3, after your preparation, then you start to do your interview. You will interview the accuser, okay, the one who makes the report, or the victim, what happened, and so forth, what did the person do, etc. You interview the harasser, the one who's committed the offense, okay, get the other side of the story. As you have mentioned to you, you need to know 2 sides of the coin. You cannot only hear 1 side of the story and jump into conclusion. You need to see both sides, hear both sides. Okay. So maybe based on the report from the observer, may not be clear. So you need to talk to the accused, and you may end up finding the other side of the story. Okay. Then you may come to a conclusion. Talk to witnesses if they are. And remember, take notes of the meetings, okay, of the interview of the accuser or the accused and witnesses. Remember to take minutes because this is very, very critical. A lot of time during the investigation, many people do not take proper minutes. So your minutes of meeting could be question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. Finally, after all the interviews, then the committee will get together and discuss, okay, based on the evidence collected, and submit a report to the CEO, whether there was a harassment or to the management, whether there was a harassment. Okay. Please take note, the panel will have to give their judgment whether the accused is guilty or not guilty. Okay. So this is what the panel should do, whether the accused is guilty or not guilty. And then finally, the CEO or the management will decide on the disciplinary action to take against the accused if there is a misconduct. Okay. If the accused or the harasser is guilty, then the management will decide on the disciplinary action. At no time should the committee, okay, states the disciplinary action. Okay. The management will have to decide, not the committee. The committee do not decide on the disciplinary action. Okay, so bear that in mind. Same goes with the court. In the actual court, if there's a jury, okay, people, a group of people deciding guilty or not guilty. Most of the time, the jury will just say the person is guilty or not guilty. They will never tell the judge to hang or to jail the person for 20 years or for life. Never. It's only guilty or not guilty. And let the judge decide what punishment should be made up to the offender. All right, to the criminal. So that's usually the case. So same here, the committee should not recommend the disciplinary action. just tell the management, the CEO, whether the person is guilty or not guilty. Okay. So the committee, like I said, the committee does not recommend a sanction, does not recommend the punishment. The CEO will then decide. Of course, the CEO may consult, okay, because being he may not be in a good position. He will then consult the HR manager again. Oh, for this offense, what is written in our HR policy? Okay, how do we term this misconduct? Minor or serious? And ask the HR manager for his point of view. All right. So so the committee should not. The committee do not sanction. The committee do not say anything about the disciplinary action. The CEO will then have to decide. The CEO may not be in the position, will then consult the HR manager based on the HR policy, whether it's a major or minor. Yes. So committee only determine the verdict, guilty or not guilty. And it's up to the management, which is usually the CEO or the MD, the boss, to decide on the punishment. And the boss, not being a HR person, may rely on the HR manager for advice. Okay, and then HR will then step up as a HR now, not as part of the committee, but as a HR and advise the management. Okay, but most of the time the CEO will say, if it's harassment, it's termination. Okay, if it's a serious harassment, which is repeated. All right. So that's basically it about how you can handle harassment. And in the event that you need to put out a harassment policy or you have a harassment case, well, you can always approach us and we can help you because we have our consulting arm where I can look into the case and give you some advice and so forth. Okay, so that's basically what we do. All right. And okay. So that's basically about the webinar today. Before I end, do you have anything, any question, anybody about harassment? Anybody? Like I mentioned, harassment, okay, sometimes it's not easy to pick it up because identification is not easy. Some is not so obvious. Some victim doesn't want to come forward to report it. And many observer, other employees who observe the harassment, they keep quiet. They do not want to report as well because they do not want to offense the harasser who may be the department manager or a manager. Okay, so they do not want to be in the manager black book, so they may not want to report. So many a time harassment get away undetected, and that's very sad. Okay, because there is no proper harassment policy in the company of what to do and so forth. So as HR practitioner, my advice is draw a HR policy on harassment and then start educating all the employees, managers and employees on harassment, the do and don't, okay? And especially for the managers, do not take advantage, do not start harassing, all right? And if there is a harassment the first time, take action quickly. All right, jump in quickly, not to terminate the harasser, the offender, but to help educate and correct his action. Okay? If the first time is reported, HR should quickly step in and try to help correct the behavior of that person. All right, through attending of a workshop, okay, workshop or training or education or to address, okay, the behavior. But if it's persistent, continuing, then more serious action that will have to be taken, leading to termination or dismissal. But in the first instance, it should be a warning followed by a workshop training to correct the behavior. In some form of education, corrective education. Okay, so sometimes people get drunk. Okay, then they start to abuse, start to have contact or taking advantage. All this needs to be addressed. It can happen outside the office, which may not be known to the HR. In Singapore, it's not too bad. But in countries like Japan, South Korea, where they have a lot of drinking session after work, this do happen quite frequently. And also in those countries, Korea, Japan, the past China as well, Taiwan. Usually, manager tends to be more elderly, and they do want the junior to respect them and obey them. Okay, so they will always tend to bully, okay, the junior, but not so much so in Southeast Asia, very much lesser. So that's it basically for me for this webinar. Please complete the poll and do connect with us to stay updated. All right. And if you do have any question, please feel free to send us an email to Uditi. All right. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. Hope to see you again.